and good morning. I was just reading a note that telling me that I was out of storage on StreamYard. So I'll have to go in and put some more financial stuff there to keep some of them, or at least download them and free up space. But anyway, good morning. How are you? Okay. I decided this morning I was going to be optimistic. I woke up with that, and that's what I'm going to keep. And I woke up really early this morning, probably about 4:45, and started working on what did I want to talk about as it relates to being optimistic. I just decided that there's so many things to steal our joy, you know, people, sometimes places we're at, sometimes the situations we're in, sometimes finances, sometimes romance, whatever it is, it could steal, our optimism. And I don't want that. The news has been quite dismal lately. And, when you listen to it, it could really, upset your equilibrium in terms of am I okay? Can I withstand whatever's coming my way? But it's not just your way, it's other people's way as well. But this is an individualized body that I have and that you have. We must think on our own. We must feel on our own. We must care on our own. We must love on our own. It's all an only kind of thing, even though we may have other people in with us who may be thinking similar thoughts or having had similar experiences. So we understand that. That's okay. But when you look at the complexity of where we are in this life, we have to talk about how do we make it so emotionally and mentally I can get through. And so my word for today, and I look back, and I haven't, if I did, this word in the past, fine, well, and dandy. I just think it's a great word, but the relatable words to it make sense to me. So I redid it. I didn't go back and say, did I do that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever I did. I know I probably done this word, because to be optimistic to me is important. It's important that we keep the essence of who we are above all what is happening to us. We know, because it's not just happening to us, it's happening in the world, it's in our lifetime. We never expected COVID. We never expected a shutdown. We never expected to, not see family and friends for 2.5, 3 years or more if you're still, wearing masks because you're concerned about what's out there. We didn't expect that. We don't always expect when the market turns and our money changes and the money gets funny. We didn't expect that. So we have to always be, as best as we can, with whatever's coming at us, to be optimistic about it. So I found a poem online at poetry.com, and I presume this person says his name is Davik or Davik, Daivik May. Davik May. He wrote positive affirmations. Okay, positive. How often are we positive and give ourselves affirmations? Sometimes we have to go to someone else to hear what we need to be told and what we need to learn for ourselves. So positive affirmation says, hey there. Yeah, it's you I am talking to. Listen to me. I went to the future. You turned out fine. Yes, you did. It is going to be better. Everything will turn out all right. Hey, buddy, don't care so much about all these little things. They will come and go. Trust me, they don't matter that much. Just a small part of life, not worth hurting. Now, don't be so upset. It will all be fine. This too shall pass, as everything does. future holds everything for you. So now don't be sad or be, but not for long. Don't compromise with your happiness. It's much more important than so many other things. Your life has just begun. You have so much to see, so much to experience. And if you put your all in it, you can achieve all you want. Trust me, you can. You have it in you. So, friend, I'm going now. But remember, there will always be someone to love you, someone to live for. So many joys and pleasures still await you. Most importantly, strive to be happy. Strive to be good. You can do it. I love this poem because it's like a really chasing after you. But wait a minute, hold on. I got one more thing to say. I got one more thing to tell you of how important you are to me, how important you are in the world. You know, a lot of times, good morning, Joan. A lot of times we feel small in the world. You know, we feel small because we think our problem is the only problem going on. But yet still everybody has problems. Everybody has concerns. You know, as I said, it could be the money, it could be the romance, it could be the friendships, it could be the workstations. It doesn't matter. We all are going to go through. We're all going to go through. But this too shall pass. So I look at how can I make optimism or being optimistic important. You know, for me, I know I use prayer, but I didn't have a P in here. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm a praying somebody. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Good to have you in this space, Maritzia. Let me make sure I get it right. Maritza, good morning, good morning. And I remember just meeting you, and it's always a pleasure when I can meet you again. But anyway, life is, regardless of what's going on in our lives, we have to deal no matter what. So I thought this poem was most appropriate. And once again, you can find it on poetry.com by Davik or Davik, Daivik, May, May. It was posted on 2022, called Positive Affirmations. I love it. If you can find it, read it for yourself. Good stuff. Just absolutely good stuff that really talks about all the things that are going on. So when we really look at our lives, we have to look at them in such a way that says, what makes sense? What makes sense to us? What's there? What's possible? No matter what we think, something's going to happen. No matter what we do, we must have a response to the way we live our lives. We must, so when we're looking at optimism, we want to talk about it in such a way that says it's having qualities which inspire hope. To me, hope is important. If I don't have hope, I don't have anything, I mean, when I've gone through a surgery or I've gone through a death of a family member, or I have to look beyond where I am right now. That's my hope. That's my optimistic behavior forward. I can't talk about what's in my past because even after I leave here, somebody needs to have hope that they would continue on. That's our lives. We must look at our lives systematically, but also optimistically. Every day we live, that's another opportunity to be brightened upward and not constantly looking downward and inward to sadness. I don't want to be sad. So that's why I felt that this word was so appropriate, because every time I turn on the TV, the news just sounds so dismal. Where are we going? What are we doing? How are we going to function? But before we can function as the world and as the country, how do we function individually? Our choices. And I choose to be happy. I choose to be optimistic. So optimistic also talks about promising. I don't know what's promised to everybody, but I know what's promised to me. And my faith Good morning, Calithia, Ardelia. Good morning. Good morning. My faith is up high. That's where my faith is. If you're Jewish, if you're Buddhist, whatever you are in terms of your faith, or maybe you're just atheist, agnostic. That's fine. But wherever it places you in terms of uplifting your optimism towards your life, that is important. That's important. So it says optimistic should be bright, hopeful, upbeat, rosy. I like that rosy thing. It says you also should look at being positive, auspicious, okay, reassuring, auspicious, meaning you don't need other people around you to believe you're in your own optimism. You know, you can do it alone, favorable and confident. That confident word is really good, and we're gonna delve into it on the end. But that's what I look at when I'm looking at being optimistic. I can't worry about what I cannot control. And there's so many of us. We worry because we feel certain things are out of control. But they're out of control anyway. It's just that we believed enough in it before where it made sense. You know, Somebody told me, make it make sense, Sandy. I said, I can't make things make sense because sometimes the sense only leaves you more nonsense. When you look at what would have made sense and you look at what doesn't make sense, you just have more nonsense because that means you understand the difference between the two areas that are separated by either discussion, feeling, or emotional feelings or ways forward. That's what you look. Good morning, Miss Rose. How are you? Today our word is optimistic, and I'm quite sure everybody's been through a period where they felt optimistic, regardless of what's going on. That's what I'm encouraging us to do every single day, that we be optimistic. So when we look at optimistic, when we break the word down, and I'll ask you this morning, are you stuck? Are you stuck on being sad? Are you stuck on being, not non-trusting or anguished about what's going on in the world or in the country or in your city or in your house, in your mind, in your heart? Okay, we need to look at how we deal with that. Someone was detected at your shift. I don't know what she's saying. But Alexa's been making me sick lately because she has some kind of glitch in her. But anyway, we're not going to let her stop us this morning. So when we break the word down, my first word for my O is orientation. What is the orientation of who I am? I didn't say who you were because this is personal. So the orientation is a state of fact or particular direction. What direction am I in? If I'm in a direction where I'm constantly looking down, can I look forward? Can I see ahead? No. Can I look up and realize that everything that is higher than me must be looked up at? I can't. So I have to talk about my orientation, my personal space, my understanding. Good morning. Thank you for all the prayers for Benny. Yes, thank you, Megan. It says we're currently in the waiting room in the pulmonized. Okay, having a panic attack over this is going to go. Guess what? Give it up. For me, I give it up. My daughter's getting ready to go through surgery on Friday, and guess what? I've already talked to God about it, and I'm going to talk to him about it every single chance that I can. That's what I'm going to do. So the outlook. Thank you, Joan. Outlook. Thanks, Megan, for that. So we have to look at what is our outlook? What is our orientation? Where are we at? We can't do anything about things we have no control over. And let's face it, we have no control over the economy. We have no control over what goes on in anybody's house. Sometimes even in our own house, we know we've lost control. Okay. Gaining control is probably the positive thing about that. Ownership. That's right. Sometimes we have to own our mess. We have to own it. Or we have to own the fact that we have no will. We have a will, but we have no way of changing some of the things that are happening to us. Because it may not even be just happening to us. It may be happening to multiple folks, or it might be happening in the world. Like COVID COVID happened all over the world. when they were shutting down all over the world. So everyone understood that. But it may be different when you're talking about it being, closer to you, like in your home, in your city, in your country. You may look at it differently. But anyway, I said orientation, ownership, outlook. Thank you. Thank you. An orientation says what is the aspect, the alignment, the arrangement, your exposure. Sometimes we have to turn off the TV because if it gives us that constant anxiety, we need to turn it off. Okay. However, we do need to turn it back on. We need to hear some things because some things we need to know. We need to know. So it also says frontage and exposure. Fronting, facing forward, facing whatever direction you need to go in, whatever direction that is. And then it says exposure. Sometimes we're exposed, not that we want to be, but we're exposed because we need to be. We need to be. And sometimes that means we got to turn TV back on. My P, as I move on in my word of being optimistic, talks about patience. How many of us have patience? It's hard when we're anxious about, a bill, or we're anxious about surgery, or we're anxious about a relationship, a love ship, a kindship, or even work completion of something. We're anxious. And that sometimes puts us on edge and we lose the ability to feel our patience. To me, patience settles us down. Okay. Meaning I can't fix it all, but I'm going to do my best. I can't do it all, but I'm going to try. Perceptive. How perceptive are we? That's really good, Joan. How perceptive are we about what's forward and not backwards? Sometimes we need to go left and right. Always, I don't know about you all, but I know in church, sometimes when I'm not a, one that's really, jumping all over the place, but when I really get something, I might rock left and right. That may be my way of dealing, preference. That's good. What is our preference? So my perception is that I'm going to be all right. And I may rock it out a bit. Okay. Or even my preference. My preference is for peace. That's my preference. That doesn't mean somebody's not going to give it to me. It just means that I can't get it now, but I can get patience if I just talk to myself, and I'm not talking about when you're being considered to be crazy or anything, losing control. When you're talking to yourself, you're just talking yourself down from the limbs, from the thing that says it's the anxiety, from the frustration, from the I can't fix that kind of thing. Oh, come on, Kalithia, give me peace. Where is my peace? And if I'm constantly on this roller coaster of, and they said, and now they're saying, and here's my money, and no, I don't have no. Where's my peace? How do I find peace in the middle of chaos? How to find peace in the middle of a crisis? For me, it's prayer. And for me, it's just owning up to the fact that some things are going to be out of my control. That's for me. So I said my patience says, it's the capacity to endure what is difficult or disagreeable without complaining. Now, sometimes we want to complain. Sometimes we need to complain. But once the complaining is over, that means it was stated, it was given to somebody who was willing to hear it. Sometimes we complain so much nobody wants to hear it because they know what you're going to say. So we have to get beyond that. But what I'm saying is, when we get beyond it, what do we find? Hopefully we find some peace. The fact that we couldn't change it, so we're also going to be finding our patience, where we become more tolerant. How do you become tolerant when the world seems to be roughing you up? Tough. Okay. Willingness, forbearance, discipline. How do we remain disciplined in a world that seems to be undisciplined? These are tough. These things are tough. It's not an easy thing to remain civil when the world is starting to seem uncivilized, you know, or the calls that are being made seem to be unjustified. How do you remain, you know? So it also says long suffering. Now, I always remember long suffering being in the Bible, meaning that they would tell you stories of people who had long suffering, such as the woman that had the issue of blood, you know. So long suffering, or the issues of Job, long suffering, you know. So I mean, it actually gives you an idea that suffering can be extremely long. So where is our patience? We need it. We need to call on our peace, our patience, you know, our preference, our perceptions. We need to call on all these things. Sometimes we have to call on everything we know, everything we've ever learned, you know, that settled us down. And it also says patience is the acquiescence, it's the passivity. A lot of times people think passivity is a horrible word, to be passive. I think it's better than being passive aggressive. You know, you either be aggressive or be passive, but to be both in the same sometimes gives people a lot of trouble. They say, which way is it? We're going left, we're going right, we're going up, we're going down. You know, you have to figure that out. And it also says it's sufferance, it's submission. Sometimes we don't want to be, you know, to actually be submissive to anything that comes our way. We think we want to be on the side of I fought it and I pushed back. And sometimes you realize that you're pushing on a wall that cannot move, pushing on the wall that it will not fall down, you know, and needing to realize that sometimes we need to call on something that's much higher, much outside of us, something that can give us something we can hold on to, even though it may not be tangible. It may not be that we can hold, we can feel that hold, but yet and still it gives us that hope, which makes us optimistic, you know, all relative. So when we move on in our word of being optimistic, I want to say that I want to be thankful. I'm thankful every moment that I'm not troubled, every moment that I don't let the anxiety override where I'm going or where I need to be in my heart, in my head, in my movement. You know, I'm thankful for that, you know, because I think of what I could be doing or what I could not be able to do. That's what I do. I think about those things. How do I justify the importance of who I am if I'm not looking at being grateful in my thankfulness? So I'm constantly telling my higher power, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I walk my steps of, and I probably told you this, 14 steps from my ground floor to my upstairs location. 14 every time I get to the top, and I go to the bottom, of which is probably probably about 8 to 14 times a day, because sometimes I purposefully leave up things upstairs so I can get that exercise in, but I do that all day long. But I'm thankful for that I can still do it. There's some people can't walk. They can't even walk 2 steps to get to a door, or 2 steps up. They can't do it. So I'm thankful for that. Tangible. Yes, that's a great word. What is tangible? How do we make things tangible? How do we get things to the point where they are tangible? So when we're thankful, it says that means we're experiencing pleasure, satisfaction, or delight. We're thankful. Okay. We're glad that we were able to do something, pleased that we accomplished something, happy that we're still here, you know, satisfied that that we are content for the moment, even though we still know that things exist that we can't control. We're still content in the fact that we still can see, walk, talk, do something. And even if we can't do some of those things, we're still grateful and thankful for what we can do. It says also we're hopeful. We're and once again, there's that word optimistic. We're optimistic. So that's good stuff. You cannot take anything away from what is written. These things are written. I mean, this is Merriam Webster and vocabulary.com, and I use Cambridge, the Cambridge Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary. I go to all of them just to make sure that I have an assortment of information, and all of them pretty much use the same words of their descriptions of what things are. When I continue on in my word of being optimistic, my first I is for individualized. When we look at our lives and our being in ourselves to look at being optimistic, we must make it for ourselves. I can't tell you to be optimistic and you are. I can't. I can't tell you to be thankful and grateful and, serene. I can't give you any of that. All that's individualized. I'm telling you what I do for myself to try to make it through all of the wired information that comes every day. Comes through my phone, or it comes through my TV, or the radio in the car. Even, I've switched over to streaming, where I don't have to hear as much commercials, but in order to make it free, I'm still going to hear some commercials. Okay. Maybe not as many, but nonetheless, some are there. Investigate. Yes. Thank you, Joan. How do we investigate, for ourselves? If we're individualized, we should, I think one of the greatest inventions in the world is Google, because it's fast. Now, not everything has probably been checked. So therefore the investigation needs to be looked at. And then when you're researching, especially online, go to legitimate sites. Go to sites that you've heard of, or go to sites that's their mainstay, which is research. So they're going to give you the real deal. Like whenever I'm looking at medical areas, or I have questions about a medical issue, I don't want to go to, some of would they have like message boards? I don't want that. No thanks. Take me to the actual site of what it is that I'm looking for. Then that helps me. That helps me know that what they're saying has more realness, concreteness than what I would find out on a message board, because sometimes the message board may twist you around. So investigate is good. My M in being optimistic is, how mindful am I? How mindful? Mindful, conscious or aware of something. I want to be consciously aware of what's going on in the world, but I also want to be conscious into how I am feeling in what is going on in the world, but not to let it avalanche me, or not to let it bring me down or chop me up, but to really just make it where it is something that's a part of life. It was something that was given and happening during the period of my life that may have affected me, but certainly got my attention for a moment, but it wasn't something that I remained, intent on. I just said, okay, I heard that, can't change it. It is what it is. So when we're mindful, it says that we're aware of something, we're conscious of it, we're alerted to it. And I think we need to remain alert, and we should have some sensibility to it. Now, when I said some, that means I don't want it to go all in where it's broken me up inside, or it's made me feel, insecure, or made me feel like I'm unsettled, or I'm anxious, or I'm worried. I don't want any of those things. I don't want those. So in order for me to know something, I must look at it in such a way that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then I can't deal with it. So meticulous. How do we meticulously deal with what's going on? We can investigate it. There you go, Joan. We can break it down for making it. Sometimes we have to take things in what I call small pieces. Like, I remember when I was little, my mother always told us, when she taught us how to cut up our own food and everything, She told us don't let the bites be so big that you can't ingest it properly. You can't take it in. So I always remembered that. So when I'm eating something, you never see me pack my mouth, even though during the years and look them younger years, I could eat up a lot, but I just ate it in small in smaller bites, but I still ate up a lot. Now I don't have to worry about it because I'm still cutting small, but now I even eat less. So eventually you adapt, you adjust, and eventually I adjusted. But meaningful, yeah. What is meaningful? Sometimes we have to ask what's meaningful to us. Um, it may be a collection of us's, or it may be just what's meaningful to me. And if it's individualized, that means it's meaningful to you. And sometimes we don't even want to get beyond that. We're just afraid of our what's meaningful. What's mindful for me says that I'm aware of it, I'm conscious of it, I'm alerted to it, and I'm sensible to it. Not senseless, sensible. And it says, I become acquainted with it. That's why I said you need to know what's going on in the world. You do. I want to be acquainted with it. I don't want to be caught up in it, though. That's when I have to back down. That's when I have to say, okay, I'm only going to give a little bit of attention to this, a little bit of investigation, because I want to know how it relates to me or how it will affect me. That's what I need to know. So when we move on in our word, and meaningful is important because we need to know that things are meaningful, to us. Intentional is my second I, intentional. And I know they use that word a lot lately, but intentional meaning it's done on purpose. So when I am trying to stay away from the exploding conversations or getting involved with things that are beyond my ability to change, I want you to leave the conversation that we did have in good standing, and I want to do the same. I want to leave in good standing. So therefore those conversations I may avoid altogether. But what I will say is that when I'm intending to have a conversation or intentional about having a conversation, then I will. But I also had probably investigated, that's such a good word today, investigated who am I talking to? Will I leave with the same integrity that I brought to the conversation? Will they do the same? Will we leave where we've exploded, or will we leave where we're still connected in kindness? How do we do that? The only way you can do it is that you must pay attention to it. You must pay attention to it. Who am I going into this conversation with? And if it's a conversation in the first place, because sometimes some things are not for open conversation. They're for you to meld over yourself and let it be. Let it be. Isolate, yes. Sometimes we do have to isolate our thoughts. Isolate them from whoever, isolate them from whatever, I try not to do politics, I try not to do religion, even though on here I will tell you that my higher power is God, and that's my belief. But other people have other beliefs, and I don't take anything away from them. Nothing, not a thing. So I like to isolate, those things along with weight, because I think many a person has been offended greatly when we discuss weight. So I don't do those either. Those are my three that I do. There's probably more, but those are the three that I know are always on the list. I try not to offend. I try not to in any way hurt anyone's feelings. And I try to leave a conversation that I'm having with someone to still be intact once we separate and we go our separate ways. So isolate is good. Intentional, done on purpose, and intended, meant, considered, meaning you considered it before you did it. There, to me, to do things mindlessly doesn't make sense to me. So I have to consider what I'm going to do before I do it. you know. Now, every once in a while, like anybody else, I slipped up, but it wasn't originally intended to work in that way. So when something is intentional, it also says that you've studied it, you knowingly have considered it, and then it says it's willful. Sometimes we when we're talking to people, we're okay when we start the conversation, but something triggers us, and the trigger makes our willfulness become weariness later on. Our willfulness to take it that far, our willfulness to let them take us that far, okay? Because we went. Sometimes you have to just say, yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. I still love you. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the conversation. I'm going to just leave it. I'm going to leave it because it's just not working for me. So when we're intentional, we understand that we cannot do anything but state where we are and leave it there, or be where we are and stay there. That's intentional. When we move on our word of optimistic, my S is for sensationalistic. Let's face it, the world is sensationalistic. They will take, a word, they will take a situation, they will take, an act, okay, that started out as being one thing, and it just multiplies and divides and multiplies, and next thing you know, it became, everybody's conversation, everyone's. So it gets on the news feeds and it stays on there. And to me, that constant listening also is a constant teaching of information. Okay. And having been a teacher and a counselor for years, I know that the more people hear something, the more they have a tendency to believe what they hear. So the people are the diehards that listen to news 24/7, or the diehards that listen to music. I am a music person. Okay, so I can listen to music with words or without words and be totally engulfed. Okay, I'm okay with that. But I think it's the words that can change our way of feeling, our way of thinking, our way of acting, are the ones that get us into that sensationalistic realm of understanding how that kind of information can incite us in any way to do certain things, to say certain things, or even to act a certain way. It is what it is. So sensationalistic, it talks about a person who presents stories in a way that is tending to provoke public interest. In a way that is intended to provoke public interest for excitement or at the expense of accuracy. Is that not heavy? How many of us have listened and heard stories? Eventually we believe them, but who investigated? There you go again, Joan. Who investigated the sincerity of it, the accuracy of it, the rightness of it, the correctness of it? Who did it? Who did? If we didn't, if all we did was listen and we never looked for ourselves, does that make it right? Don't know. Hey, Sharonda, how are you? Good to see you, Sharonda Michelle. Good to see you this morning. Influence, thank you. Sometimes influence does have a great, what I would call a great work. It does a great work on us. I always remember in undergraduate school when I was studying, in my psychology course, they always talked about, influence being one thing that, takes us over. So association and accommodation, okay, also let me know that if we stay with folks a long enough time, we believe like the folks we stay with. boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, girlfriends, friends, friends, guy friends, work friends, work situations. We gravitate. We're just here. We believe that. We're over here. We believe that. So we have to talk about sometimes sensationalistic stuff, you know, pumps us down in some ways of really knowing the information, but pumps us up in terms of we're going to advocate for it. Do we have enough information? Sometimes not. Sometimes not. Oh, and good morning to you too. That's so sweet. Thank you. So anyway, we have to look at our lives in total perspective, totally everything. And can it get us to a point where we're optimistic? You know, when I realize I can't change anything, I have to say my optimism has to be higher than my pessimism. You know, I don't want to be pessimistic about stuff. I don't want to be constantly worried about should I go out. You know, I don't want to become a recluse. I don't want to become somebody that's fearful and still try to live my life until I'm no longer here. I'm going to live my life. But I must be aware that these things are out there. I must be aware that the news still goes on. TV, radio, whatever. Even when you get it streaming, there's going to have something's going to come up in there that you're going to still hear. Or it might be a special report, you know. The special report will make you stop. Wait a minute, now, what's happening? We're going to pay attention. So we know that our lives are like that. My T as I move on and optimistic is for think. When I say think, I want you to think for yourself. Which once it's individualized, that's from an earlier section that we went over, you know, individualized, you know, intentional, your thoughts. And, you know, so when we think of something, that means it says have your particular opinion. I didn't say that you'd have 15 opinions or you'd have the TV's opinion or the radio's opinion or the preacher's opinion, the teacher's opinion. Your opinion, your own opinion. That means you've researched it enough, you've investigated enough, you know my opinion. This is how I feel about it. And a lot of times we're not clear on how we feel. So we go to others who have stronger feelings and then we gravitate. It is what it is. So when we think, it says, what is our belief? Being under the impression, what to expect, what we think of, imagine. Sometimes things didn't even happen and we imagine that it did. Come on now. We dream during the daytime. I'm learning, read the room. At times, I concentrate too much on delivering the message itself and not enough on whether the person or the prepared to receive it. That's true. But I'm going to tell you something. I love that. I love it, because sometimes even reading the room, you will get mixed messages because there's always, having been that teacher, having been that counselor, sometimes the information you can put out is 150% on top of everything. But here's what happens. What happens is that if the person has already come in with their own perception, okay, or their own ideas, or their own idiosyncrasies, or their own explanations, no matter what you said, no matter what you say, is going to turn them in any way. But here's the thing I always go on. All I go on whenever I'm doing anything is the opportunity to present. It's not saying the opportunity to present to just the ones that want to hear, but even the ones who aren't hearing. It may be an opportunity for them to hear something that they didn't hear before, and they come around full circle. Or they come around half the circle. Say, well, wait a minute, maybe I better question that. You never know. You just never, ever know. So I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you. So when we think, it says also we anticipate. When we think, we anticipate. Now, to me, to be comfortable in the bodies that we have, the minds that we have, at some point in time, we've anticipated things to go a different way. And when they don't, that's when we're going to see that point where we're uncomfortable because it didn't go the way we wanted it to go. Didn't go the way we expected it. It went negative and we expected to go positive, or it went in between the positive and the negative. And so now we're unsure as to where we are. That's life. That's life. I don't think anybody's probably gotten 150% or even 100% of what they've always wanted. I always think sometimes I may wake early and I'm thinking about, so I have this, and this, and this, but this is what I wanted. This is what I would have enjoyed. This is what I would have loved. But it doesn't matter because I got, in this instance, this is how I look at it. Sometimes I got what I deserved. How do you figure? I got what I deserved, at the time. And maybe later on I'll get something else that I wanted and maybe didn't deserve. Every once in a while, we'll get things we didn't deserve. Like people who have more money to share but don't. Like people that have houses that are huge enough to house, 100 people. They're the only one in it. I always say if the Lord ever gave me a pot of gold and told me to use it wisely for helping others, I would. Oh my gosh, I would help others. But I didn't get that. So I help in little ways, but I can't help in the big way. And I look around and think of all the people that could help in big ways, major ways. And what do you see? Sometimes you might see selfishness. You might see carelessness in terms of you looking at it, 15 cars, several houses, vacation property, abroad, travel. Now notice something. I don't in any way, feel regretful, shameful, or I'm not opinionated about them. I just say, wow, if that were me, what would I do for others? That's all I say. That's it. It is what it is. We all get a certain amount, small portion, maybe a big portion, whatever we get, I certainly attempt to share when I can. And when I can, I let you know I can. Every once in a while, they ask me, will you help with this and that? And I do. Other times I tell them I can't. I have my own stuff I have to do. So you have to be mindful. So you have to think. My second I is for independent. An independent, free-flowing thinker, free from outside control. Not depending on another's authority. Sometimes we are dependent on authority that we don't have. We have to abide by laws. Something simple as going through a red light. We've broken the law. I pay attention. I try to. Every once in a while, the little thing I might do may end up costing me time, money, and prayerfully not disrespect, but every once in a while we just do what we do. But being an independent person says I'm free thinking, maverick to a sense. It says also free, feeling free, unconventional, bold, liberated, unhampered, and undisciplined. Not undisciplined to the point where I'm out of control, but undisciplined in meaning that no one needs to control me. I'm not on medication. I don't need a sitter, to get through my day. That to me, that's extremely important. And my final letter is my C. And my C is confident. And I've done confident before. How confident are we? Are you? To say, are you stuck with a response of no? I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck. To be able to say that. Confident, feeling or showing confidence in oneself and being self assured. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I'm going to do what I can do as long as I can do it. I know there will be boundaries, but I can anticipate the boundaries and measure up how I can deal with the boundaries that are there, because sometimes we know that there's boundaries, but we don't think there are, and they are. So when we talk about being confident, it says being self-assured, self-confident, positive. There it is again. Like optimistic. Being positive is optimistic. Assertive, self-possessed, believing in oneself. I don't want that to diminish in me. I'm going to fight until I leave up out of here. I want to believe in what I've been given to do here on earth, even if it's limited in terms of what I can afford to do. Cautious, yes. How cautious are we? I think we need to always keep cautious, not close to optimism. We don't need to be too optimistic that we have not looked at the barriers, looked at being cautious, looked at what's the alternative, what's on the left side of right, what's on the left side of where I am. I feel I'm right. What's on the left side of me? I have to ask those questions. Confident also talks about being composed, being level-headed. Are you level-headed? I think you are. Unflappable. When I think of unflappable, it to me it's a comedic word, because I always associate it with something I had, seen on Broadway when I was little. That there were people that were portraying folks that no matter what you did to them, it did not matter. So that's why it became comical but understandable, that it meant I ain't moving off of this. I'm staying right here. I'm stuck. Okay, I am stuck on where I stand. So I like that. It says also unfazed, and lastly, it says you are together. So anyway, I know this was a long word today, but I wanted to break it down the way I wanted to break it down, because I just knew that it had significance of who we are, where sometimes we need to dig and dig deep. It's hard for us to dig deep. Sometimes it's so difficult for us to dig deeper when we feel that we're holding our ground as it is, but it's difficult to dig further than that. But anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. Hope you got something out of the word today. If you don't do anything else, I've tried to certainly encourage you, but hit the share button and let it be shared that somebody was here still trying to do something that's forward, not backwards, that it's all in love that we're doing this. Good morning from a good teacher. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I said, what's easier is if I sing. Sometimes I can sing better than I can actually speak, but the Lord, he blessed me to have people that would come in and listen. I thank you too, Sharonda. I do. Thank you so much. You're new to our session. Come on in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. I'd love to have you join us. And I appreciate the fact that you have just come right in and understood you understood the assignment. That's not mine. It's somebody else's word, the assignment. But listen, I'm going to be back on Wednesday. Now, Friday, I will not be here because my mother, that's Freudian. My daughter is going to have surgery. So I need to be here with her on Friday and possibly Monday. But somebody said that they will probably be in there with her while I can come and do my session on Monday. So I will still have a word on Monday. I just won't have it on Friday. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. And I will see you soon on Wednesday. Okay? Thank you. Love you. Great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.